Let me start with you, Minister Sebastian Burduja, Tianu, as I like to call you. We're going back a long way now. You're a young student at Harvard. I was a not so young visiting fellow at Harvard when we met in 2011. I remember that. And I knew by then that you were going to have an impressive career in the Romanian political life for good reason. I think there's no exaggeration saying that you are one of the most dynamic, ambitious, and well-connected ministers in terms of understanding the policy priorities and the urgencies that must be tackled. I would just like to turn the floor to you and invite you to talk a bit about what do you think are the priorities for Romania, the major projects for you as a minister. And of course, we want to underline the regional cooperation angle as well, because we are a regional panel here. We are believers in Romania's importance in building up a solid energy system for Southeast Europe.
Thank you, Professor Dudo, dear Radu, dear friends, distinguished panelists, and I'm very happy to be here today. Because one, I get to talk about energy, and I find that nicer these days than other more mundane issues like sewage and potholes. But I'm also glad to be here today because I really appreciate what you do, Radu. You told me before we started this is not meant to be like a praise for you or EPG, but I have to say it. I think it's absolutely wonderful what you have accomplished. And I cannot believe it's been 10 years. I remember our first conversation when he told me I'm going to start this think tank. I said, this guy's crazy, but I'm not going to say it. He's crazy to start a think tank in Romania. It's so hard because, I had this experience with the Caesar Foundation, and it's really hard to fundraise, to gather experts, to make your voice heard, but you play such a vital role. And it's such an important field. In fact, we've been friends for 15 years or so, 13, 14 years. And I was very glad to know I'm not the only crazy guy who came back to Romania after being abroad. There's a lot of need for people like Radu Dudo, and I think we all admit it. In energy, I can say this now, after about a year of mandate. I was told before I started this job that it would be an extremely difficult job and that I was an idiot for accepting. Because one, I'm not an electrical engineer, so I had to study a lot. This guy was responsible for a lot of that. He was and is my mentor in the field, one of my mentors. And the importance of the field is fundamental for economy and for people's livelihood. What I think EPG does best is you are one of the key partners for the ministry and for the government, really, to understand topics that are very new to us and very new to the world, really. And you've done reports on hydrogen and on SMRs and on carbon capture and many of the topics that we cannot address within our ministry. We have very good people, don't get me wrong, but it's extremely difficult to find, recruit, pay, motivate experts in fields that are very up and coming, very new. Because such talents are getting paid, 20 times as much in the private sector, and I think that's fine. So our approach has been to have a conversation, to open it up to the private sector, to have an honorary council, and thank you for agreeing to be part of that. And I think we'll keep doing this. It's absolutely vital to have such a forum where we can discuss, debate, understand priorities, even get our hands dirty in drafting guidelines and understanding how we can structure around 16 to 18 billion euros from the modernization fund, from the RRF, to make sure that our funding calls are relevant and applicable. And so looking back, I think that we've accomplished quite a bit in a short period of time. I'm glad that we are about to come out with the National Energy Strategy. I know that has a special spot in Radu's heart because he's done the one before. And so we hope it will pass soon. It's more of a concept, really, than a full-fledged strategy. It will not include a list of projects, and I explained why before. We need to go through the permitting and approvals very quickly. And the National Integrated Energy and Climate Plan is hopefully going to be done by the end of June. And then it will have to be approved through the environmental procedures and all that. But at least with these two documents, I think we would set the sector in order. And then, and I will close on this note, I think that we have quite a bit of progress in funding and projects and calls. And so from green energy, from investment one in RRF, to the modernization fund, our calls for public authorities, to the nuclear program that is advancing despite setbacks, and it's normal to have hesitations and really think hard about decisions, especially when it comes to new technologies, new projects. I've had my colleagues in the ministry do the calculations, do the math on the investments we've been able to finance, and it's stunning. It's adding the private contribution to the public or non-reimbursable to the grant portion. It exceeds 12 billion euros just over the past year, and that's not counting the nuclear program. And so I think this is the most important investment flow in the energy sector in really post-1989. And we need it because the energy transition requires it. What I think are the main priorities, and this will really be my last remark, I think right now we need to focus on storage. We're working hard that by the end of the year we will put out a funding call for storage. We hope it will be around €500 million from the modernization fund. I think that will make Transelectrica very happy, but it will also make the market very happy. And what we've seen in the call under the RRF for storage is a huge demand in the market. We've received many applications, and we're only able to satisfy a limited number. So I hope it will be a similar success under the modernization fund. And then the CFD scheme, I know there's pros and cons, and I know that some voices have criticized it. But ultimately, I think it will bring Romania in line with many other advanced countries to be able to do a successful contracts for difference scheme. Not to mention that it will finance 5,000 megawatts of solar and wind. That's a big contribution to our goals. And I hope you will all participate or get the word out. There are big companies out here, here in the room. Please come and participate. The more competitive it is, the better it is for the country and for our people. So I would say storage, CFDs, advancing the nuclear program, and obviously hydrogen. We've had a successful call, a relatively successful call under the RRF, and by the end of the year, the proposal is to allocate another €1 billion for hydrogen projects. So please get your pencils ready, get your homework done, and we'll see you at the ministry when you apply. Thank you, and congratulations, Radu.
Thank you so much. It's an impressive list. It's a lot of those were long overdue. I know you have to go, and we appreciate so much you're taking time for us.
Back to the potholes.
There's one thing I would like to add to this list. The link that your ministry just made between the vibrant IT sector for digitalization just last week and the energy companies, this is an amazing progress. Thank you so much. Now, because our schedule was pushed back a bit, we will accommodate the tight schedule of Matthew Baldwin in Brussels, waiting for us online. Matthew, can you hear us?
I can, and good morning, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you perfectly. Thank you so much for joining us. And I was wondering, what do you think about our minister's priorities? How do they fit with the view from Brussels? And maybe other elements about enhancing regional cooperation for our part of Europe. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you very much, dear Radu, dear ministers, dear friends, and happy birthday to the EPG. I'm so sorry I can't be with you in person. It's a great achievement, and I share what the minister said about your organization. It's great to be joining you, if only virtually, because you're raising such, as is typical for EPG, such important topics at such an important time. I would like to come on to what the minister said on a couple of issues. You'll forgive me perhaps if I begin by looking at the European angle to all of this. Of course, we start from the extraordinary, unjustified, brutal war of aggression triggered by Russia, which has changed our energy and our geopolitical landscape and our regional landscape for a very long time to come. And at the European level, it triggered, I think, a very successful plan when we've just had a birthday for it, and that's called the Repower EU plan, a big, bold step for the Commission and the EU. And I think this is a good opportunity for us to look back, as at the same time as the EPG is looking back over its fascinating 10 years, to see how far we've come and to think about where we want to get and how we get there. And to cut to the chase, as they say, I think you'll see that regional cooperation is going to be a crucial part of that, and a sustained effort to support and work with Ukraine and Moldova. Just look at what we've done since we launched the plan. We've seen, and of course, recall the basic premise is that we need to get quickly out of our dependence on Russian gas, to diversify our gas supply, but of course to use this also to boost the green transition. And since the plan's launch, we've seen a huge increase in renewables, with more than 130 gigawatts of additional capacity deployed. If you turn that into gas savings, it's actually some 24 billion cubic meters of additional gas, effectively. We generated more electricity last year from wind than from gas. We installed 22.5 million heat pumps in 2023. We've seen extraordinary increases in biogas and biomethane production everywhere in Europe. We've now got electricity prices back to their pre-war levels. Gas is nearly down to the pre-war levels. We've stabilized our energy markets. We've halved our energy import bills. And most importantly of all, perhaps, with a longer term perspective, in terms of energy security, we have reduced tremendously at the European and the regional, and I think also at the national level, our vulnerability towards Russia. Now, all of that, we shouldn't pat ourselves too much on the back because we've got huge challenges ahead. We need to ensure we stay on track to meet our energy and climate objectives and to meet our very ambitious goals for 2030 and for 2050. Please bear in mind that we've also been analysing and what we need to do for 2040. It'll be for the next Commission to take forward the recommendations that this Commission has made in terms of additional efforts. But we need to create, with the European Green Deal, a framework that delivers carbonization in a sustained and affordable way to the rest of the European economy, creating a more circular energy system with the energy efficiency first principle, accelerating electrification. We estimate that by 2040 we'll need to double the amount of electricity provision in Europe. And of course, that needs to come from renewable-based sources. We need to promote renewable and low-carbon fuels. We've heard a bit about that already from the Minister, in terms of hydrogen for the hard to decarbonize sectors. So I could go on at great length, and I know I don't have the time to go on at great length. So let me turn quickly to the regional. Again, stepping back, analyzing the situation when we launched Repower, it was clear that the biggest challenge was going to be at the regional level, and it was going to be how to meet energy demand in Central and Southeastern Europe. And we're steering these efforts on infrastructure and in terms of regulation through CESEC and the CESEC high-level group. And I want to thank you in Romania and also our Bulgarian friends for everything they're doing to make our collaboration in CESEC a great success. I think it's helped to complete a number of critical projects: the Trans-Balkan Reverse Flow Project, the Trans-Adriatic Pipeline, the Brewer Corridor between Bulgaria, Romania and Hungary. And of course, now we're turning to how we can complete the remaining priority projects, such as the Trans-Balkan Electricity Corridor. And we're looking with great interest at the vertical corridor as well. Briefly on Moldova and Ukraine. Again, we thank you in Romania for being the pivot, if you like, for these efforts as well in so many ways. We stand absolutely firmly behind building out Ukraine's energy sector in a comprehensive manner. Financially, of course, we need to address their emergency needs and rebuilding a sustainable and resilient energy system. We're financing this through the Ukraine facility, 50 billion euros, through the Ukraine Energy Support Fund under the Energy Community. We need to support it operationally. We need to support it in regulatory terms. And of course, the same goes for Moldova. And this is why, in the broader picture, the enlargement process is going to be so important in the coming years. And just last week in Brussels, we've taken big steps forward to begin those processes for Ukraine and Moldova, including on the energy side. I think I should stop there because I know we're late. My apologies for being so late in joining, and thanks to your technicians for finding an answer, which I'm afraid is the low-tech way of connecting me by my phone, so I'm squatting over my desk. And I have never and probably will never master IT, but apologies for not being there and being late into the party. Thanks, Radu.
Thank you so much, Matthew. No worries. It's been a perfect connection, and thank you so much for the great points you made. By the way, it's an occasion for me to thank our excellent technical partner, EM 360. They're covering all our logistics and technical support. Great team. So I don't know if you can stick with us another couple of minutes, or you're due to go.
I'm good for another 25. I'm so very happy, and I'd like to listen to your
okay, that's very good news, because it would be best for us to also have the opportunity for some real dialogue here. And from your points on Ukraine and Moldova, I would now like to go to our good friend Carolina Novac. She's a State Secretary in the Energy Ministry of Moldova. And as we always like to showcase, Carolina started her career at EPG, just as EPG was born 10 years ago. In a way, your career and the growth of EPG took place on parallel tracks, Carolina. Of course, the view from Chisinau must be a bit different, feeling the pressure from the east, and there is, I think, a feel of pressure and urgency that of course, outside support is crucial, but also that you yourself have to do much more than previously. And yeah, I think it's inspiring to see how yourself and the young team in the Moldovan government in general are pushing things so quickly that we also want to achieve for ourselves: digitalization, debureaucratization. What can you tell us about how work feels from you at the office day by day? What's the mood in Chisinau, and what's the hope?
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. Dear Rado, dear professor, dear panelists, I'm particularly pleased to be here. And for me, I would call it's an emotional panel in a way. Indeed, 10 years have passed, and at UPG I had my first job, and I remember I just graduated writing my thesis back then on EU-Russia relations and interdependency of energy resources. And here we are back right at the same issue in a way. And I think it was also just a perfect start for me career-wise. And I remember not being an engineer, but I said to myself, okay, I just discovered the tip of an iceberg, because in the energy sector there is just so much to study and to analyze and to reflect upon. And indeed, and right now I think, well, Moldova is quite the country which reflects this clash, I would say, of the Russian influence. We have to still face it in the fake news, but above all in the worst energy crisis we have ever had. And I think even across Europe, in terms of energy vulnerability, we have faced it the worst. Firstly, because we don't have these energy resources in Moldova, no gas, no oil, no coal, so we can primarily rely upon the renewable sources we have. And secondly, also because of limited infrastructure. So for instance, even on electricity power lines, all of the power lines we had with Ukraine, basically only one bypasses Transnistria. They all go through Transnistria. This is just one example of how the Russians have planned and let's say designed this dependency, even infrastructure-wise. On gas, it's a bit of a different situation. But when we had this worst crisis, meant what? Because we used to be fully relying on 100% dependency of Russian gas. So the gas would always flow from east, basically to west, right? Then with this, when Gazprom started cutting its supplies, even up to 56%, and I remember back then I was the energy advisor to the Prime Minister. They were at days, and I think between November and December it was difficult for us even to plan a thing longer than a few days. And this is terrible for decision making, because you don't really have the luxury to, I don't know, think about energy strategy, forget about decarbonization in those days. It was difficult to reflect upon wider strategy. But a few things here. When this reduction of supply started, there were two good things about this. One is that, in a way, we did our homework. So we thought of replacing gas at the CHP with other fuels. Okay, of course they are polluting, heavy fuel oil, but it could leave us some time to spare and to identify new sources as well of gas. And so we managed to reduce this gas consumption, first thing. Secondly, we have also managed to identify new additional sources of gas and to test completely Trans-Balkan pipeline, to use IGBC interconnector fully. Even at some point Energocom became actually the biggest user, say, gas supplier of this interconnector, gas interconnector. Thirdly, also to have some of the biggest gas being stored in Ukrainian UGS. Even right now, we store most of the gas in the Ukrainian storage. And third, in a time of crisis like that, we set a mechanism which is called the Energy Vulnerability Reduction Fund, which is, I would say, new to the region, meaning that you identify these classes of energy poverty and you give compensations directly reflected in the bill in accordance with the revenues and the vulnerability of the consumers. And that allowed us to, with restrained resources, to cope and to reflect these needs accordingly. But above all, I want to emphasize these things, and this is very important. The support that we have managed to receive from the EU, and above all from Romania, it was of paramount importance. No matter how much homework we would have done and how well, I don't know, we would have been prepared, it's difficult to imagine what would have happened in absence of that support. And I think, yes, Moldova managed to fight back this Russian dominance of power and its influence precisely because we had Romania's support, but as well the EU support in financial terms from the EU, but also from Romania in accessibility of resources, so meaning electricity supplies, gas supplies as well, to a lower degree in a way, but all of this was very important, even wood supplies we had at some point. So it's important to go back and to reflect upon this. And I think this solid support, it's a pity the minister is not here. We are happy to further continue having this. I think it's historical what we also have in terms of relations between the two countries. And right now we are planning, and I will go to the power lines because they're very important as well. With Romania, we only have one power line. But even that one that goes from Moldova, it doesn't go straight to Chisinau, it goes to Transnistria. So it's precisely for that reason that we are right now building this power line. In addition, we are planning to build 2 other power lines. Why? Because Romania, firstly, is the entry door to the European market. And we will also have, by 2025, we'll have to couple the markets. This is a deadline we are having as well. Moreover, we have as well have set in place this electricity market operator in Moldova, which is not Opcom, it's called OPEM, but it's a subsidiary of Opcom. And I think by the end of this year, we expect it to be already functionable. So things are moving, and now in terms of priorities, I think the big difference that this crisis made is that you can actually start building from the scratch. You can actually plan and design a system which, in a way, was absent. So the Ministry of Energy, in our case, was also, set in place 1 year back. So this whole crisis was managed by 7 people, with the State Secretary as well, and experts we had. But right now, it's, I would say, 3 priorities we have. Especially, so they are linked with the decarbonization agenda, which I'm also covering. First is energy efficiency. And maybe for many countries, politicians they don't always pick energy efficiency because it's a lengthier, it takes years as well to have renovated a set of buildings. But precisely because we don't have the fossil fuels, we see energy efficiency as the primary way to reduce our dependency on fossil fuels. Second, we know we can cut on the bills. So up to 40, even 50% in some cases with thermal isolation, we know we can reduce the bills for consumers instead of just giving them plain compensations. And third, this can generate a lot of jobs. And we know that this can actually be a proponent for the economic development. So what does this mean in terms of programs? We have set this energy efficiency fund in the residential sector, which is led by the National Center of Sustainable Energy. We already expect around 100 million lei, Moldovan lei, reduction in terms of so budgetary reductions overall. Second, we already have 5 different programs on energy efficiency for public buildings. So the biggest hospitals in the country are being renovated. All this is just to say because energy efficiency, it's a no-brainer as well. It's the first thing you want to do when you face such costs in the country. And because actually of this crisis, we also had the inflation going up. So there's a direct liaison with the economic development. The second priority goes with the renewables. For us, renewables is not just about decarbonization and greening the energy sector. It's actually about energy security and it's about energy independency, because this way we can also secure we have more domestic energy produced within Moldova and we are not relying upon other external sources. Already we have seen within just 1 year, because of this crisis, a doubling of capacities, of renewables installed capacities. Now we are working for the first auctions, renewable auctions in the country. That would add up extra 6% of renewables in terms of the generation mix. Now, like the minister said, I also would like to appeal to the possible investors and businessmen and businesswomen here. We will, as of September 2024, this year, we will have it. The investors will be able to join this auction, and if they have interest. So we have 105 megawatts for wind and 60 for solar. I know these are not big capacities, but we are already working for the second auction in parallel for a go-to area where the state will take all the risks in terms of the grid connection, in terms of the land, so we can speed up this development and in the post-2030 to be capable to export also to the European markets. The third priority is, I would call it, we have a new concept which is called innovation sandboxes. So I would say also looking in the energy sector beyond just energy security, and looking in terms of its role towards the economic development. So most of you probably know what is innovation sandboxes. We are working over this law. Moldova is a small country, and for a country of our size, we need to be flexible enough and to be open enough for new investments in the country. So, such as technologies, products, services, processes. We are working right now as well on energy communities, and I know in Romania as well. And we are considering to test all of these new concepts within the innovation sandboxes. And of course, digitalization here comes, it's at the heart of this whole transformation. And I would link digitalization as well with cybersecurity, because the threats, and let's make no mistake, we are still fully aware. We are in a hybrid war when our energy websites of energy companies and stakeholders, they are being taken down by different Russian hackers. We need to be able to safeguard the interests of the stakeholders and in general of the energy system, and to be more resilient and to face all of these threats. So, and the last point I would make, the reconstruction of Ukraine. This will happen sooner or later, I hope sooner. And Moldova will be the starting point of this whole reconstruction process of Ukraine, because we have similar market conditions. We're both EU candidate countries, and we can provide those same elements as a safe entry point to Ukraine in terms of its reconstruction of its infrastructure and secure its also economic development in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. What a rich overview of actions and ambitions. It's a fascinating mix of angst, in a way, of having to do things so quickly under duress, under the pressure that the threat from Russia poses, and then really this ambition and an effort to do things the right way, to integrate as quickly as possible in the European energy markets. And speaking of the programs for building renovations, 5 of them, we will take a file of your book for Romania as well. I mean, there are things for us to learn as well, but indeed I think a lot hinges on the fate of the war in Ukraine. Romania, I must say, is very involved in supporting the Ukrainian power grid. And I hope that the key Western European capital really understand what is at stake beyond the rhetoric. Because from here, we almost see a level of complacency at this point, whereas the situation is quite dire, and Ukraine really needs much more support that it's currently getting. And a lot of things could go worse in the Black Sea for the energy projects in the region if sufficient support doesn't come, or things could go much better if the right level of support comes in time. And I hope just that the key capitals in the West will move past politicking as quickly as possible. Now I want to move to a true champion of regional integration, or I should say green regional integration. Even before the topic had become fashionable, Julian Popov taught us about what our countries, from Greece to Romania to Moldova and Ukraine, but also the Western Balkans and also Turkey. I remember Julian was very present in your reflections some years ago. We are very pleased to have you as an advisor in our board. And how would you update your reflections on regional cooperation under today's conditions?
Well, thank you, Radu, very much. Thank you for the invitation and happy anniversary. It's fantastic what you've achieved in 10 years. How many people do you have in the staff?
I think we're all 20.
Well,
20 full-time.
well, 20 full-time and a whole European network of experts and very good friends. So congratulations on that. Really, the region needs such kind of thinking driving force, because we do need quite a lot of thinking. We're a little bit behind on that. On regional cooperation, I mean, your title, I've been staring at it in the last few minutes. It says it all. I mean, the priority for regional cooperation is regional cooperation. As simple as that. And we don't do that enough. We are very far from that. And regional cooperation is, yes, it is conferences and friendships and state visits and so on. but also it has a very strong sort of hardware part. And that is expansion of the cross-border grids and electricity grids. And that's the direction where we're moving. We're seeing that. And we have to work very hard on the expansion of the grid. This is now almost trivial statement that Europe is behind with the grid development, but we really have to push because the grid development is not something easy. It's not something simple. I mean, it takes years and decades to develop, to build. And one of the problems with the grid development is that we don't know how the energy system will develop. I mean, many people say, oh, energy is going in that direction. Well, nobody knows where exactly it's going. 10 years ago, we didn't have any idea that the energy system will be what it is now. 15 years ago, we were thinking that until 2050, wind and solar will stay as expensive sources of energy. Now they're cheap, and getting cheaper and cheaper. Batteries were seen as some kind of a luxury, some kind of a laboratory devices that, yes, we will rely on the future, and Microsoft and Google and McKinsey, I mean, it is for them somehow to talk about that. Now we see in our region purely commercial projects that are developing battery storage. So that uncertainty we have to internalize, and we have to start working with uncertainty. So our energy strategies have to work with different scenarios, and we have to be prepared for all that. What our recent history taught us, energy history, I think is very important. I mean, I'm very glad that Matthew mentioned CSEC, format that is very close to my heart. I was closely involved in setting up CSEC 10 years ago. And that was the result of one of the first gas shocks in the system. Putin said, well, we will not build South Stream. So that horrified the whole region. How are we going to survive without South Stream? So then we kind of gathered together, organized some meetings with the Commission. CSEC was born, then it expanded from gas to electricity, energy efficiency, and renewables, and also included Western Balkans, Moldova, and Ukraine. I think we have to push that format and lift it up as a very relevant and strong energy cooperation platform. Moving forward, we saw the whole gas story is quite sort of overrated. I'm confident that we will win the war with Russia, and Ukraine will, with the help of Europe and the United States, will be victorious. But we already won one war with Russia. We often say, well, following the invasion of Ukraine, the gas market and the energy crisis started. It's not exactly correct. Actually, Russia started the energy war about 6 months before the invasion of Ukraine. And that energy war was expressed with, manipulating basically the gas supplies and the gas market in the framework of the contracts at that time. But then with the war, that stress became much stronger, but we won it. I mean, when in 2022, April, I think, Russia suddenly stopped, Bulgaria and Poland were the first countries where Russia stopped overnight the gas supplies. Russia stopped the gas supplies for Bulgaria. nobody noticed, except if you read newspapers. But nobody noticed. That was not a problem. And Bulgaria was supposed to be the most dependent on Russian energy, which has never been very dependent on Russian energy because Bulgaria is not a great user of gas. But gas has such a kind of mysterious image that without gas we can't survive, that because we were importing all the gas from Russia, we were thinking that we're 100% dependent on Russia. And leading Bulgarian politicians, I mean prime ministers, presidents, ministers and so on, we're 100% dependent on Russia, but we were not. But gas kind of confuses people very much. And another thing that we learned...
Sorry, but you did import a lot of gas during the crisis. I mean, luckily you could supplant...
Yeah, first, Bulgaria is not a big user of gas, so that helped. The Bulgarian electricity system is not highly dependent on gas. There is very little electricity from gas. But there is gas infrastructure that could replace instantly the supplies. But then the reduction of the gas use started. And this is a very, very important lesson because we are also victims of one view that gas is a transitional fuel. Gas is not a transitional fuel. I mean, this is a fact. That's not a kind of a climate activist wish. It's a fact. In the last 10 years, gas has not acted as transitional fuel in Europe, in Australia, in South Africa, in many other countries. So, and last year, we had already, we've seen the positive results of the energy crisis, and the drop of electricity from coal was, I think, 29%, and at the same time, 15% drop of electricity generation from gas. I mean, that, I think, was the end of gas as a base fuel. So when we think about, and in the region, when we think about investment in the future, we have to be very careful about how we invest in gas and not make this investment mistake to put any public money. I mean, if somebody private wants to build 10 gigawatt of gas, good luck. But no public money in base load gas generation. Gas will have a role of balancing fuel for some time, and then we'll go. And finally, what I want to say on that background is that we're now in a stage of uncertainty. In this stage of uncertainty, we have to learn how to manage chaos, because chaos is one thing that helped us very much through the crisis and give this flourishing of solar energy. But we need wind, and we need the wind in Bulgaria. We need Moldovan wind, because Moldova has very strong wind potential, and the Ukrainian wind, because this area has a very, very strong wind potential. We have to develop it very fast. And then my formula for the recent future, for the future now, will be wind, cables, and managing chaos, and we'll be fine.
Well, excellent. With the small detail that managing chaos might be a bit unpredictable, but yeah. Of course, I expect some maybe pushback from some other speakers on some issues, but you've always had adamant views. We took them and respected them. Unfortunately, I understand Matthew is not online anymore. I just wanted to turn back to him with is he? No.
We can answer it.
Yeah, all right. So, because there's also for the final 4 minutes that we have now. There's also a different angle to geopolitical stress, which is not only about Russia. It's about the trade tensions. It's about what the clean technologies mean in terms of production and value chains, and the protectionist tendency we're seeing. And there is this, to put it simply, struggle between the liberal-minded, the overproduction from China in terms of rooftop panels, PV panels and batteries is a chance. We should go full in, buy as much as we can. That helps the energy transition. That's one camp. And the other school of thought is we definitely shouldn't be doing this, because that would destroy the very industrial basis for us to create these industries, to create technological independence and resilience. And the debate is not just theoretical, it's not just academical, it's about interest groups as well. In Germany, it's one thing to ask the CEO of a multinational with high stakes on the Chinese market, and it's different to see the vantage point of a small and medium enterprise that's active on the local market. But this shows in the government's unsettled foreign policy in terms of trade in Germany, but not only there, basically in the European countries that are strongly dependent on exports. We are not, as a region, as dependent on that, but the spillovers concern us as well, and the thinking is present here as well. Should we go full in on what's now probably the record cheap clean tech technologies? I mean, who would have thought that batteries can get that cheap so quickly? But then they're all from China, hardware and software and everything. Carolina, would you like to go first on this?
Thank you. I actually just came recently from Beijing, from a German-Chinese forum of businesses, and a few things struck me. 25% of all the light-duty vehicles in Beijing, they are EVs. And you know, it's not uncommon if you go have a walk and you see driverless cars, and they are not being tested. They are already literally, cleaning the streets and whatnot. For Moldova, for instance, it's not like the Western countries, companies are crowded at the entry of it for, the renewables auction, and it's so crowded that the wind turbines cannot, pass the bridges. Meaning that we need to admit as well that, for the past 10 years, PVs have dropped in price around 10 times. This is what the IEA was saying. And probably the key driver for that was competition and was China. What the discussion was in this forum was about actually not stopping the production or, being in such a competition and to fight over China, but it was rather to how do we manage at the global level to secure the same standards applied in the production of all these technologies, but also to secure anti-dumping policies, right? So that these are not putting on the margin, say, the European industries. So we have to also, I think, admit that it's due to China that we have these lower prices, including for BES, which we are also seeing dropping. So right now, and by the way, this is also an important element in the discussion of the gas narrative that Mr. Popov was referring. For instance, we don't really have capacities in the balancing market. And when the US support for around $300 million that they have provided to us, and by the way, Blinken, State Secretary, will be tomorrow in Moldova, and there will be a discussion on that as well. Some of this funding will go for battery energy system storage and ICE. So still a sort of a gas-fired powered generator. The question is, how do you secure in this transition, I don't know, other sources which are still resilient, easily dispatchable, and solid enough for that electricity system to make it, there is no yet other sources in the sense that you can deploy at the country level or to have them as well commercially based. So, and by the way, the Americans are also not particularly applying this no China policy in Moldova. So, meaning that even in a third country like mine, like a third party, you know, you have to be a bit agnostic about the technology.
Before I move quickly to Julian, and we have to be really brief because we've practically run out of time. But look, if we are to have a show of hands, thinking of the American example, President Biden just signed an order introducing 100% tariffs on Chinese e-vehicles, 100%. Others, so some say it's a mistake, there should be no tariffs. Others say in the US they should be outright forbidden on the US market. So if there is a binary option, tariffs or no tariffs, nothing in between, what's the preference in the room? Who would go for zero tariffs? Hands up. In the room. Zero tariffs on Chinese clean tech. Who would go, so zero tariffs. It's not too many of you. Who would have tariffs on Chinese clean tech? It's hard to say, it's about 50-50, as far as I can tell. So that's instructive. In 1 minute, if you can wrap up based on this hint.
First, I would very good to hear that the American policy in supporting energy is slowly maturing, and they are supporting batteries rather than other things. Well, on China, it's simple for me. Protectionism is bad, fair competition is good, so we have to keep that line. And if we start imposing tariffs, it's a little bit like if you see that your neighbor has a very good car, you go and puncture his tires rather than work hard to have your own car. So we have to put our effort to compete for the future with China and not compete with the past and kill both Chinese economy and European economy. So this is very important. We have to find our competitive advantages, and we're a little bit blind on that. So that's where we have to work.
All right, thank you. So I think our high-level panel deserves a round of applause, and but before we move out, we step out for the short coffee break. It's going to be a bit shorter than initially planned. It was due to be 20 minutes. Let's have it 15 minutes long now. I want to take the opportunity to thank our supporters that made possible today's celebration. Always my gratitude to ECF, European Climate Foundation, for all their investment of trust and money in EPG. OMV Petrom, our long-term partner, we're working with this company on clean energy topics, and it's an important support. PPC, the Greek company that is such an important player in the Romanian electricity distribution system, and also a contributor to regional integration in their own right with their Balkan level development plans. Thank you to all of you for making this possible. And so the break is not now. Sorry, I was about to spoil the program. So the break is after the first panel. Thank you, Luciana, for pulling my arm on that. So let's now move to the first. Thank you very much.